Time for Dart Talk. Brought to you by thedartzone.com. Stay in the zone. Thedartzone.com is an official Cosmo distributor and Windy City Fabricators, America's premier fabricators of orthotics and prosthetics. And Redwood Darts, America's newest tungsten darts. Stand straight and tall and hit them all. Redwood Darts. And now, here are your hosts, Mystery Mark and Steve P.
Okay, welcome to Dart Talk.
Hello, hello.
How you doing?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm good.
All right.
Dart Talk brought to you by the Dart Zone.
Stay in the zone.
Dartzone.com is an official Cosmo distributor. Also, many thanks. Windy City Fabricators, Redwood Darts. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Another Wednesday of
it is
of Dart Talk. Missed you last night.
Yeah, I'm sorry I blew you off.
Well, we had a snowstorm here in Chicago, so apparently a lot of people, I don't know, they don't want to take a snowmobile to Darts or something.
Well, yeah, no, I mean, the snowstorm was Sunday, but we had planned on going out and practicing since we had a bye week, and I got to shopping on the internet for somebody's birthday, and I got to talking to my mom and talking on the phone, and I looked outside, and I said, why in the world would I go out in this? Because it was only like 1 or 2 inches coming down, but I was like, you know what? I'm comfy in my own home. So
well,
I blew you off.
You blew me off, and I actually, it was kind of funny. I ended up playing with a guy from one of the other teams in our division, who's a Seahawks fan, by the way. Mm-hmm. And I guess, we were right about the coin flip. We were right about that Seattle would defer.
Yeah, right.
I don't know. As far as the Super Bowl went, I just thought it was a horrible ending. I mean, it
depends on who you're rooting for. To me, it was a fantastic ending.
It was what kills me is that because it ended that way, I have to listen because I monitor like sports talk radio and stuff like that, and I look at some of these shows like Major League Network and NFL Network and all this stuff, and invariably I'm like, okay, here comes the Tom Brady's the greatest thing since sliced bread thing that's going to come. And I'm just like, you got to be kidding me. The guy threw one of the worst interceptions I've ever seen in my life, right? They chuck and duck and, okay, fine. 74% completions, and they're all 3 yards, right? Fine.
He threw for 350 yards.
He's a system quarterback, and they got a great system there.
Sure.
And he's been very successful with it. But as far as being the greatest quarterback, I have a hard time putting him in my top 5. I really do. And now you got to hear, he won 4 Super Bowls, because it was amazing that he intercepted that pass that Tom Brady did.
Yeah.
And all the tackles he made and all the guys he blocked while he was throwing all these. He does it all
that
himself.
Argument goes towards everything else.
I'm so sick of hearing about these guys in this like half-ass analysis that you get from these people, right? Is he the greatest ever? Come on, give me a break.
Okay. I mean, but so you're going to compare him to Joe Montana, but you're telling me that he wasn't a system quarterback?
He was.
And
he
was
had
Roger Craig and Jerry Rice and
yeah. Well, it just goes to show you in this system, anybody can be a receiver, and if you're willing to get hit and you're quick, you'll get the ball. It's fine.
So then Dan Marino's the best quarterback ever because he wasn't a system quarterback.
He was
fantastic.
I would say that Dan Marino is one of the top 5 passers that the league has ever seen. I would say that. Just this whole idea that, he's the greatest ever, it's just like, it just makes me physically ill to listen to this stuff hour after hour after hour. And now it's going to go on for the rest of our lives because he won all by himself 4 Super Bowls. Did you ever hear Terry Bradshaw mentioned as a great quarterback? Never.
Yes.
He won 4 Super Bowls.
Right.
Ever hear Jim Plunkett?
He also had the
best. He won 2.
He also had the best defense ever.
I'm just saying. The discussions are so just ridiculous.
What do you want them to discuss?
Why on earth you would make that call at the end of the game? They kind of gloss over that a little bit.
No,
you know?
okay, but on the
I
other
mean,
hand,
it's
listen,
like, oh.
I know you. If they spent 8 hours a day talking about why you would make that call, you'd be making the same argument. Going,
No.
I'm sick of listening to this. Everybody discussing why they would make that one. Why they would keep talking about it.
You know, they want to make it a quarterback-driven league, and you know, it makes it easier for the media because all they got to do is talk about one guy as opposed to the other 52. Now, what do you do when the 53rd guy makes the winning interception? It screws them all up. They're trying to interview the guy. The guy doesn't know what to say. He's like, nobody shoved a camera in his, he wasn't there on media day, I mean, it just, it was kind of ironic.
My argument would be, why is Julian Edelman not getting any props? That guy was unbelievable.
I mean, how is Tom Brady MVP of that game? I really don't see it.
Edelman literally could have been MVP of that game.
I thought he played great.
He played great, at least 11 catches, and he made all the key ones, and
it was
the game-winning touchdown.
Yeah.
He gets nothing. But, I mean,
he may not even have a job next season. They may not keep him. I mean, they shuffle guys around.
Somebody will take him.
Great team, great organization.
I get the
great
concept
system.
you're trying to say, but, the end-all, be-all is the quarterback is the one that wins the games or loses the games.
No, he's not. I mean, he's part of it, but he's not. Is it Russell Wilson's fault that ball was intercepted? I don't think so. I think the coaching staff had a total mental meltdown, and talking to a Seattle guy, he's saying that, Darrell Bevel doesn't like Marshawn Lynch, and that's why they don't want to have him run it in, so he gets MVP. Can you imagine the post-game interview with Marshawn Lynch if he gets MVP? I mean, the politics in football is so outrageous sometimes. I mean, it kills my enjoyment of the NFL, right? I like watching football.
I mean, now you're going with a conspiracy theorist, and there can always be an angle on everything else. So, I mean,
it was the stupidest call in the history of stupid calls.
I don't disagree with that. I said it immediately after the game, or after the interception.
Yeah,
but
I mean, anybody who doesn't think that, I'm not sure that they really understand football very well. And you can, Pete Carroll's, going on and on, justifying, well, we had one timeout, we wanted to make sure we could run 4 plays, la-di-da-di-da. That is defeatist thinking. That is like you go to the line and you got 16 out, and you're like, well, okay, if I single it on the inside, maybe I'll try to miss it on the outside and walk it in, and then, okay, then I got double 4's my backup. I like double 4. All this, negative thinking. Mm-hmm. Well, it's like run the ball in, hit the double, and move on. People overthink this stuff. It's a football game.
Do you think, though, in darts from that aspect that people do that?
I've seen them do it.
People purposely miss the... I mean, granted...
I have done it on occasion.
I've seen it...
I do it on double 1 all the time.
The worst I've seen is going through the ranks, in the brass and nickel. Well, I never played brass, but nickel players, they would need a bullseye, and they would literally park one outside the double 6 on purpose, like it was just a practice one, and then and I never understood that,
because somebody in a bar when they were coming up was like, well, here's how you get.
How
you hit double 1.
It's a practice.
Yeah,
throw.
You throw one between the 1 and the 1 on the 11 just to get your arm loose, and then I'm like, well, if you're gonna do that, why don't you just throw one an inch above the double 1?
Right.
How is that
because
not
they're
better
not
for
good
you?
enough to do that.
Oh no, because somebody at one time said, "Oh, it works," and then they saw him hit it, and they're like, "Oh, okay, well, that must be how you do it," and you don't know any better.
And that's almost worse. Well, it's not as worse, but almost as the phantom throw. It's like you're just completely wasting a dart because you think that's going to get your arm in the right spot. Then all of a sudden you have to move over the 12 inches or whatever it is from one end of the board to the other to hit a double bull or a single bull, whatever you need. But
yeah. Not sure I got that, but the phantom dart you're not actually throwing. It's just
it's just a waste of time.
Wow.
Well, that's the whole point, though. That is an exercise, but you're actually wasting a dart as an exercise of throwing off the board on purpose.
Okay. I see what you mean. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And then you're wasting a dart. But
I will do it on double 1. I will park my first one, and sometimes I'll try to nick the metal number 1. Sometimes I'll pick a spot 2 barrels above it, and I'll throw it there just to make sure I got the right range. And if I happen to short arm, and I mean, sometimes it's actually gone in.
Right, but you're also talking from a better dart player than a brass or a nickel player that
well,
we've can't necessarily go for it.
Why not? I mean,
Well,
whether you got to aim at the right thing
Yes.
and then hope you hit it.
Right.
That's what the entire game is about. You know, if you're not a very good player, my God, don't cheat yourself out of darts. You're going to need all
I
three.
agree with that.
You know, I
Yes.
mean, it's just
Yes.
kind of weird.
But in that aspect, I could see, like, aiming outside of the double.
Yeah, I'm convinced that Phil Taylor's been doing that for a year. He's having a serious slump now on the double 16s, apparently. But I've seen him literally, he's like a barrel and a half outside, and he walks
He's
it
just
in
gonna
when he's
walk it
got
in,
three at a
right.
double. Yeah. And it's like, if that works for you, I mean, why not?
The problem
I mean,
is,
is if you miss.
If you miss and then you end up actually throwing like the exact same 3 darts, and they're all parked half an inch outside. It's like they're all like the best grouping ever.
Well, you can. Well, I mean,
somehow you don't walk them in.
He's been. Yeah, I think he's been struggling on his second dart. The one that's supposed to go in is outside, and then he's colliding with that one. Something like that, from what I've seen. But where are we on time? We're kind of. I just it's not really.
We have time
because I posted that there was going to be some Brady hate. I don't hate the guy. I mean, I would have liked to have seen him get hit more.
Well,
but
I mean,
I don't think he's that great of a quarterback. In that system is perfect for him, and they've developed it to the point now where you can have,
but that's what
7th round draft
the
picks
only problem
running around catching the
problem
ball.
I have with that type of argument is the fact that all systems are geared towards who you have as a player, and all great players, other than somebody like a Barry Sanders or a Walter Payton, those guys, it didn't matter what system they were in. They were just flat out good and really good. But for the most part, I mean, like a Terrell Davis, who was a great running back, he was a system of Denver.
Yeah, a bunch of leg whipping, pulling guards.
And, I mean, but, Tom Brady, I mean, these guys, they win. Joe Montana, they win on the system and the system they have. And you even go to college. You go to college, and if you're a passing quarterback, you don't go to a running team.
Well, yeah, but I'm just saying.
But does that make you great?
Brady got hurt one year.
It makes you great at
Matt
your sport.
Flynn came in and won like 11 games. So, I mean, you could plug in the quarterback, and if the quarterback knows the system,
you can plug
the
in a
quarterback.
running back too. There's plenty of running backs that you've never heard of that have made a name for themselves, and then 2 years later fizzled out.
I'd have heard of them. Well, like Timmy Smith or something had one good game, or is that who you're talking about?
No, I mean people, all of a sudden, like Carolina had a couple guys for years.
D'Angelo.
Before D'Angelo Williams, they had a guy, all of a sudden they would just pluck these white guys out, and they would run for 100 yards a game, and the guys that you never heard of because they had a good running team, running offense. I
mean, but I mean, that's all I'm saying. Is like this argument that I don't know why they fixate on this. Well, is he the greatest ever?
Because they need content.
If they, I guess. Is he the
all
greatest
about
ever?
content.
If his team wins, he's the greatest ever. So if Seattle doesn't make this stupid call,
right,
and Seattle ends up
then
winning the game,
he's still one.
Then is he not? Okay, now he's only won half his Super Bowl,
he's
so
one
he must
one
stink.
of the best ever, not the best ever.
Oh, it's just
I mean,
kills
think
me. I'm
about
so
it.
sick of hearing about it.
What about the argument between Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, and LeBron
nobody
James?
argues about that. Everybody says Jordan's the best.
No, they still argue about it.
I haven't heard anybody.
Oh my God,
I live in
say it all the
Chicago,
time.
so Michael's record is like immaculate.
But see, it's the same thing you're talking about. Michael Jordan didn't win 6 championships on his own. He didn't make the playoffs.
No, he didn't.
He didn't make the playoffs till they put a team around him and put a system, the triangle offense involved.
Yeah, right.
And they
actually made him play it.
And they made a system
Yeah,
around
Michael,
him.
you got to pass the ball.
Right.
Yeah, right.
And you actually have to not only have somebody else other than him to play defense. And they kept plugging. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying he's not the greatest basketball player
he
in
is,
the world.
right? I mean, everybody's still talking Bill
You still
Russell.
had to build a system around him, and you still had to plug in the right guys. So how does that affect Brady? You still have to plug in the right guys and put a system around him. He still has to execute.
Yeah, right.
And he did.
Yeah, but
So what's wrong with
anybody
that?
could.
No,
Matt Flynn could do it.
No.
Who's he played for
What's
lately?
Matt Flynn done?
Josh McCown could have gone in that game and made
Listen,
every throw that
Trent
Brady made.
Dilfer won a Super Bowl.
I know.
Doug Williams
Is he
won
awesome
a Super
or what?
Bowl.
Doug Williams was good.
He was good. Trent Dilfer
Jim
was
Plunkett
okay.
won too.
Yes.
Anybody say Bart Starr was like a great quarterback? And and
The
a
fact
great
of the
passer.
matter is he's gotten to 6.
Lenny Dawson won one.
Okay.
Yeah, his team's gotten to 6 Super Bowls.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Well, he's part of that team.
Yeah.
Not only that, not only in like 7 years, in
15 years, yeah.
that there's a lot of transition involved. He still has to be the guy. He's the guy that makes it all happen. Our quarterback,
He's the guy that
our
makes it all
quarterback has a
happen.
great offense, and he hasn't done a thing. And I know it's not
Cutler.
I know it's not all his fault, but they still have to have a team around him in order for him to be successful. New England's been able to put a team around Tom Brady for years, and he's been successful, which makes him one of the greatest quarterbacks. He's been successful.
I don't know. They had to shore up their defense, and they picked up Darrelle Revis and Browner, and all of a sudden they win a Super Bowl. So it must be Tom Brady covering those guys, because nobody mentions those guys.
Okay.
I mean, you got to have a defense. I mean, they had Richard Seymour. They had Teddy Bruschi.
Yes.
They had the linebacker, Mike Vrabel. I mean, Ty Law. I mean, they had a defense.
If Eli Manning wins another Super Bowl, are all of a sudden you putting him in that, or are you talking about the fact that
Eli, are you kidding?
Well,
no,
he would
come
win
on.
3.
I still think Archie's better than Eli and Peyton.
So where's the argument supposed to go? It's not even an argument.
You can't really. It's a dumb argument to have. I mean, it's dumb sitting in a bar to have the argument. That's all.
I guess my question wouldn't be the argument. What is the story supposed to be? Are they supposed to stop talking about Tom Brady winning Super Bowls or Peyton Manning winning Super Bowls?
They should stop posing these like stupid rhetorical questions that no one can answer with undefined terms, and then go on and on and on about it on every channel for weeks on end, because they're killing my listening.
All right.
They're all just killing me.
But yet, you still listen.
Yeah, I love sports, and I'm constantly looking.
They still have you.
I'm constantly looking at the sports pages, and I'm looking for ways or ideas that we can apply to darts to make darts better.
Right, okay.
The last one I heard that, love of my life just almost threw something at me was Scott Boras.
It wasn't like a vase or anything, was it? A shoe.
Scott Boras suggested that what they should do with the World Series is have like a World Series week, like you have a Super Bowl week. And then, play it in a neutral stadium and all this. And the minute I said neutral stadium, she looked at me, little miss, season ticket holder, like, what are you kidding me? The Cubs finally make it and you're not going to have it at Wrigley Field? Blah, blah, blah. So, I mean, it was kind of funny. But, when you think about it, darts doesn't really have that except the BDO and the PDC, because they have their big world championship, and it's a week-long event for the BDO, I think, and the PDC is even longer. But once you get through the first round and you get through the holidays and stuff, you get a solid week of fantastic darts, and we don't have anything like that. We're lucky to get an afternoon, right? You got the ADO runs the way they do it. Their big championships on a Friday, and nobody's there to watch. So,
there are traveling concerns and everybody being able to have that week to do it.
But again, why don't you have the final on Sunday when all the other players are there?
Yeah, sure.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I agree with that.
You could, if you think big about this stuff and you think in terms of marketing and getting attention on the players and all this other stuff, you shouldn't be doing things the way you're doing it. So I look at other sports and, well, how do they do this and how did they do that? And could we incorporate this? Can we incorporate that? That was kind of... if you're going to have like an argument, who's the greatest American dart player of all time, and you don't let the wives argue, I mean, how do you even remotely, have that argument? I mean, are you going to count the days when everybody was on illegal drugs? I mean, I don't know.
There's no criteria.
Well, you got to set some.
Right.
You got to set some criteria on this stuff.
Yeah.
So, winning Super Bowls is like, I don't see that as at all a measure of a quarterback's
You have to
worth.
You also have to take into account, though, that the quarterback really has to get them there. I mean, it's the whole team.
No, even the language is wrong. It's a team sport. He's one player of 53, but it's the quarterback that took you there, and it's the quarterback that won the game. The quarterback's got to have somebody to throw to and somebody to block for him and somebody to hand off to and a defense to stop the other team.
Right. But the quarterback's also the one that makes the run.
Yeah, he's got a lot of responsibility.
Yes.
Absolutely. He's probably got more decisions to make than the left tackle.
Sure.
Am I blocking this guy or that guy or trying to block
or
them both?
more decisions to make than the guy that blows the onside kick for Green Bay that put Seattle in the Super Bowl. He only had one decision to make, and he made the wrong one.
Can I tell you? I mean, it's just sort of like, maybe Seattle shouldn't have been there. But, I mean, the Patriots have basically been in, like, the worst division in football for 15 years. They've basically walked into the playoffs almost every season. Buffalo's done nothing. The Jets have been almost nothing. Miami's been nothing, right? So they're already, ahead of everybody. So, yeah. They made 6 Super Bowls in 15 years. You
also play a tougher schedule, supposedly, depending on.
Well, it never works out that way.
Well, it seems, but they don't sneak into the playoffs as a wild card. They're winning their division too, which means they're only losing 3 or 4 games.
Yeah, it's really, I was
really
still
beating good teams.
For them to come back, what were they, down 10?
Mm-hmm.
Down 10 with 10 minutes to go or something like that. For Seattle to not be able to stop them surprised me. For a defense that supposedly is like as good as the 85 Bears and as good as the Steel Curtain. And, I don't put the Ravens defense in there. I mean, Ed Reed and Ray Lewis were like 2 of the best at their positions ever. But I don't consider those defenses anywhere near as good as the Bears.
I don't think so either.
Under Buddy Ryan. But it's not a football show.
We're way over time, by the way.
All right, we'll come back and actually talk about darts. We're going to premiere the. We're going to preview. Yeah, we're going to preview the Premier League, but first, we got to talk about your journey from the vacuum of suckiness. Ooh. So we'll get to that in a minute.
Still in that vacuum.
All right, you're listening to Dart Talk with Mystery Mark, Steve Plonsimo. We'll be right back.
The views and opinions expressed on Dart Talk are those of the hosts. They in no way should be misrepresented, misinterpreted, or made to claim that the universe is against you, your family, your city, or the darting community at large.
Okay, back for the second quarter of Dart Talk, brought to you by the Dart Zone.
Stay in the zone.
Nice fade. The DartZone.com is an official console distributor and also apparently in the chat room annoyed with us. What are we talking about football for? I don't know. It wasn't supposed to go on that long. Sorry about that, guys.
Whoa.
Okay, nice. You're all messed up over there, aren't you?
This
The
is what I
views,
meant to
opinions,
do.
rants, and rampages expressed on Dart Talk do not necessarily reflect individually or collectively those of our sponsors, co-sponsors, wannabe hosts, hearing-impaired critics, or those with a penchant for attitudinal dysfunction. We at Dart Talk strive to provide you, the listener, with an educational, entertaining, and fun-filled experience each and every week. If after the show you, the listener, find yourself feeling uneducated, unentertained, and or bored, we at Dart Talk consider that your own problem.
Okay. Guess we forgot that earlier.
It's taken us 20 minutes, and we're right on track.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, before we get to the Premier League, you blew off practice.
I did.
You were
as
having,
we mentioned already.
You were having issues following through a couple weeks ago.
Well,
so
I'm having a lot of issues, but yes.
Right. So I was basically like, look, let's just come out and we'll just,
Mm-hmm.
play for a few hours. You relax, get it back together. But you had other ideas. So we talked about it before the show, and you seem to think that you have found a cure for your...
Well, I don't know about a cure. It's a more comfortable position. I went back to where I believe I used to throw my stance.
You changed your stance.
I went back to standing straight at the board instead of angling my foot 45 degrees, 90
so your
degrees.
foot is now...
Because like you angle at 90 degrees.
Well, I'm changing that,
right.
and now I'm going to a 45.
Right.
But you're going from a 45
to straight,
okay.
which I believe is what I used to do when I first started playing all the way up until I gave it up. One of the things I've noticed though is it gives me a clearer view of the board, and instead of having to like everything that you're telling me and everybody else, and my follow through, I got to make sure I follow through the board. I got to make sure I follow through the board, and I get it, but it's just so unnatural to try and like force yourself to do that to an extent, and I've noticed that when I changed my stance back to what I think it used to be, that it was more natural that since I see the board clear and if I just keep my elbow straight, it just naturally I follow through to the board.
Yeah, and what I was saying was basically like so much of your success or failure for every round of darts, I think, goes right to how you're setting up.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, for me, I'm trying to change my stance to go easier on my lower back and to get rid of the lower back strain that, I've just sort of tolerated all this time. But the way you were explaining it to me before the show when we were setting everything up is you seem to think that because you're now facing the board, your arm is aligned correctly.
Yeah, see, it seems to be as like, I used to align, my arm, my shoulder, and everything towards the center of the board.
Okay.
And then when I started, what I think I've realized is when I started moving my foot at the angle, that changes the torque of your body, and then you have to move your...
You have to
angle your shoulder and your arm,
which means you have to kind of like turn at your
hips
a little bit.
And it
right.
just didn't, so I went back to being straight, and for me, it's just more comfortable. I don't have to worry about anything. I'm just more comfortable. And then I can, just slowly turn my shoulder towards whatever I'm from center of the board to the 16s or to the 18s or to whatever, and it just in my practice sessions it seemed to be more natural. And like we discussed, I can't set my elbow up. My elbow just kind of hangs out a little to the left.
Out.
I don't have a square
to the right.
setup.
It hangs out to the right.
I don't have a
bit.
Square setup. This isn't natural.
By
to me.
square, you mean that,
yes.
that your arm is not
right.
Like your forearm isn't actually straight. It's angled
right.
a little bit.
This is not natural.
What you're talking about.
It puts strain on my shoulder.
on your shoulder.
But if I walk up there and just go like this, I have no strain on my shoulder. But you can see that it's not a 90-degree angle.
Well, I can't see that, but I saw it before you. The camera's at a bad angle, but yeah.
But this is natural to me.
Which is, I've seen that. Like Gary Anderson does the same thing. I mean, Gary Anderson's arm, his forearm is not perpendicular to the ground. It's angled a little bit to the left, while your eye is to the left of your shoulder. So now, if you angle your arm that way, you could bring the dart to your eye, which is what he prefers. Mm-hmm. Most Americans bring the dart behind.
Yeah.
They'll bring it straight to their shoulder, but they'll bring it past their eye, which I don't know one British professional that does that. I mean, but lots of Americans do it. And maybe it's more like because you throw a baseball that way and you throw a football that way. Or, maybe. That's how you throw. When you bring it back, you can't see it.
Right.
Right? So I think that's why American dart players kind of do it that way, and if it works for you, that's great.
To me, that's the funny thing about darts is, you want full extension on your back throw, whatever you call it, but some people feel like they're getting more out of it by going here, but really you're getting it just as much if you come here, and then to me the bottom line is if you keep your elbow straight.
And by straight, you mean...
Not moving.
Okay, so stationary.
Stationary, stable.
You keep your elbow
if you
stationary.
Keep it stable.
Yeah.
regardless of whether you pull it back here or here, the problem is the further you bring it back, the more chances you have of moving your elbow. But especially in the follow through, to me, as long as your elbow is stationary, you're going to extend all the way through to your target.
It's hard not to. I mean, but like you were saying, if your elbow's out of position and you're stressing your shoulder, it makes it harder for you to naturally because you're locking yourself up. Mm-hmm. And I've done that to myself. I've monkeyed around with like this, that, and the other thing, from time to time. And I've had that happen where I couldn't really let go of the dart. And I don't know. I mean, sometimes warming up, I'll have a couple of those, and I'll just be like, what I'll start to do is I will throw a couple with extra wrist. I'll throw like 9 darts with extra wrist, and that seems to like clear everything up for me. But my alignment, I don't know, it's weird. It's like this new stance. I'm like 3 weeks into it now, and now I can actually, like, I went out last night and played, I don't know, 3.5 hours, and never reverted back to my old stance. And I actually, so this morning, and I'm doing this thing where I'm actually throwing every day now. And, I went up and I'm like, well, maybe I'll try my old stance. And it felt weird. And I'm like, okay, now I'm to the point now where I've put enough hours in where the new stance is feeling more natural than the old one. So I think I've turned some sort of a corner. But you're talking, my problem with standing with your foot facing totally forward is, I lean. Apparently you don't want to lean.
I try not to. I try and lean as little as possible.
As little as possible. Because
I know I lean a little bit, but that's enough. If I lean too far, to me, then everything drops down.
I don't know how you're going to keep your balance. I think it's hard on your knee. I think it's hard on your knee to have your foot facing forward because, you can't really flex it. I mean, your knee's got to be locked. And, I tried it.
There's a little bit of flex in there.
You think?
Yeah. I don't know. I've never had a problem with my knees. So It hasn't bothered me. I've never really had a problem with my back either. But for some reason, I just think, and like this is all new. This has happened in the last week and a half that I've changed this. And I haven't played a competitive dart yet. But just from practicing everything, especially from the fact of I can feel it when I miss. I can feel that the elbow flung out. Or when, you throw it a 20 or triple 20 and you hit the triple 1 or wire right around it. It's not a bad dart. You just missed a little bit. It's not that big of a deal. You throw it a triple 20 and you hit the middle of the 5. I can feel it now. Like I used to be able to.
Okay.
That I knew that was a bad dart and what I did wrong. For the last 4 months, I would throw at the triple 20 and hit a single 5 and go, well, I just have no idea where the darts are going. I have no idea what I'm doing wrong. I have no idea this and that. And, and then it's a constant struggle. Then you get all the advice from everybody.
Well,
you have to do this. You have to do this. So then you've now got, just like any other sport, especially like golf, you can't have 15 things going through your mind right when you step to the line or above the golf ball and then expect to hit it straight.
Yeah.
Or throw it straight. And that's what I've been struggling with. Not only just... it's my own mind along with everybody else saying, well, this isn't working right. And then, you get a little bit of, constructive criticism, which is great, but then you take 4 people's constructive criticism and then you try and put it in a melting pot and fix it all at once. And, by the time the next game you're playing and step to the line, it just doesn't work. It's impossible.
My oldest sister took up golf very late in I think she was in her 40s. And came to me for golf advice. And I said, I'm like, well, okay, here's the deal. I will teach you, but then you can't listen to anyone else because I will teach you a swing that I know how to teach. But if you start doing other things, you can't just mix and match. It's not a la carte. Everything is connected. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So I got her going. She started, hitting the ball okay. And then the next year she took a lesson and comes to me and she's like, well, the guy said this, the guy said that. And I'm like, well, here's why he said that and here's why it won't work for you. And he's trying to teach you something else, right? So with darts, I mean, it's kind of the same. Everybody wants to be helpful. That's the great thing about dart players. Everybody wants to share the knowledge and the kind of hard-won stuff that they've learned over their dart experiences, over their dart careers, what have you. People that play in league 10 years, 15 years, they want to share, but not everyone's cut out to be a coach. Not everyone's all that observant, and not everyone's all that knowledgeable. So now you're going to take advice from all these people, and now you have to weigh who you're getting the advice from and how valuable it is, and la-di-da-di-da. And it's just like, I've had good, coming up, I had like 3 tips in 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, nobody really said anything to me.
I never had a tip until I started sucking.
Well, I guess you didn't need them, but it's a simple game. But when you get out of whack, if you're not the kind of person that was really aware of what you were doing before, I think it's much harder to fix it. Like, there are some guys that are really good players that if you ask them to explain something, they'll just be like, I don't know.
Right.
I throw it and it goes in.
Yeah.
I mean, there are people like that. There are other people that'll go on and on like me, and are a little more analytical. Me, I mean, when I first started playing, if I missed a dart, I had to know why. And I gradually worked it out where I wasn't missing so much. And now that I'm practicing regularly again for the first time in, I don't know, a year and a half, it's weird. I mean, it so much comes down to alignment, and we were talking before the show, and I'm like, look, sometimes I'm up there and I know something's wrong and this ain't going in.
Right.
And because I'm practicing,
it's like setting up for a putt and going, I know I'm aiming this 2 inches outside, but I'm going to do it anyway.
Yeah, and then you miss it.
and then
right, because you don't want to be that guy who backs off
exactly.
and then gets all, and we played in Hawaii. We played like 13
about,
holes in 2 hours.
We talk about playing darts at a speedy pace to keep the game going, and then the last thing you want to do is get up to the line and go, this isn't right, I'm going to step back, and then everybody's going to go, oh, my God, what's he doing? So, yeah, you go up there and you go, okay, I'm going to try and fight through it.
Yeah, it's so, I mean, if you want to get analytical, there's so many components, and I think back to what I was doing when I was most successful. Like, to give you an example, when I would play blind draws, and I'd be coming up with a dart at a double, I just... maybe 2 seconds before I even, put a dart in my right hand, I would take my stance and just stare at the board, stare at the target, whatever I was going to do, and then I would grab the dart, and invariably the first dart would go in, like 90% of the time. But I don't do that anymore.
Right.
You know what I mean? But, when I'm playing for real, because it's a blind draw and there's a little bit of money, right? So if I'm playing for real, I do that. But then when I'm practicing, I don't do that, right? And we were talking, we had a long conversation before the show. Maybe we could have taped it and saved some time. But my dad used to say, what you do in practice, you do in the game. Mm-hmm. And little things like that, I find it almost impossible to replicate my pace when I'm playing if I'm at the board by myself.
Okay.
So I mean, it's important to get legs in, I guess, is what I'm saying. It's important to play legs. To incorporate it with, whatever you're doing at home, right? So you got to get out and play some legs before Tuesday.
Yeah, I think just from my experience, what I've just gone through, and obviously, like I said, I haven't played any competitive legs yet, but I just, the major advice out of all my struggles is you're not following through to the board. My darts were flopping around, and they
were horrible in the air.
Awful.
They were horrible in the air.
They were just fluttering into the board. And I was concentrating so hard on following through the board, just throwing the dart. But then, obviously, then the minute you start doing that, they start missing. But anyway, my point is, what I hope I found is the fact that since I got into a comfortable position, and as long as I keep my elbow stationary, I don't have to worry about following through the board. It just is natural.
Right.
And what I was doing wrong wasn't the fact that I wasn't following through the board, was the fact that I completely changed the way I used to play darts.
Right, and you put your arm out of alignment to the point where your arm wasn't going to work anymore.
So hopefully that's
we'll have to
case.
see. You're going to have to come out and play this weekend.
So.
I need practice anyway. I'm going to Huntsville in a couple of weeks.
Oh, nice.
Not this weekend, but the weekend after. So, Lord knows I could use I need to get some legs in too. And then we had no league. So, all right, we're going to come back. Are we on the break? I assume we are.
Yeah, by far.
All right. We'll come back and we'll talk some Premier League. You're listening to Dart Talk with Mystery Mark, Steve Poncelman. Glad the chat room's happy. We'll be right back.
Dart Talk agrees to adhere to the Geneva Convention in treating fairly its prisoners in their war against lackluster darting administration and behaviour.
Okay, back for the last segment of Dart Talk, brought to you by the Dart Zone.
Stay in the zone.
DartZone.com is an official Cosmo distributor. Also, many thanks, Windy City Fabricators and Redwood Darts. We want to talk some Premier League. Premier League's awesome. I think the Premier League
I would like to give a quick shout out to the Schaefer family. Thanks for listening.
The Schaefer family.
Yeah.
Okay. Nice. Hi, Schaefer family. The First Direct Arena in Leeds is actually our background this week. That's where they're going to have the first night of this year's Premier League. I think the Premier League is really a good design as far as, like, I'm going to watch some guys light it up. You know? They don't always, you know. Did you see Van Gerwen average?
Yeah,
at the Unibet?
I brought it up. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. You're
That guy
talking about
is sick, man.
You want to see some people light it up. I don't know if you're going to see anybody light it up like that again.
Van Gerwen had 14 ton 80s in 17 legs,
and he had a ton 61 out in one of those.
That's where I'm talking about how the new standard is now crept from a 15 darter to a 12 and a half.
He averaged 112.
112?
I think it was, right?
I thought it was even higher. I thought it was just under 115.
Yeah,
I mean, that's some
something.
sick. That's just sick.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm telling you, these averages, these guys, you look at us. I'm not really going to count Phil.
I didn't see what his double average was, but 42%.
42%. So he could improve on that for sure.
112.49 with 11 out of 26 doubles.
How many doubles did Barney shoot at?
6 out of 19.
So 7 doubles? I mean, he played pretty good to get smoked.
Well, he threw 96. I mean, that's not bad.
No, that's the old 96 is the old
used
standard.
To win you,
yeah,
win you
it used to win you all sorts of stuff. Yeah, now it's like
now
you
lose
lose 11 to 6. Frightening. So here, let me run the matches off to you, because I don't know that you don't follow the Premier League like I do, but
no,
I just think it's like the best thing to watch as far as, like, you're in the doldrums of winter, especially for America, right? I mean, the Super Bowl's now over, and you got the doldrums of hockey and basketball.
It's the middle of everything.
Yeah, and so,
hockey and basketball.
Regular season NBA games don't really interest me much. Regular season hockey I'll watch, but only if the Hawks are playing.
Regular season college basketball, too, which is they're just getting involved in
yeah,
the Big
who
Ten.
cares?
They're halfway through it.
I don't even know who's in the conferences anymore.
Yeah,
I mean, so the college stuff is, like, beyond me. But, I mean, for darts, I mean, it's really busy. I mean, also, shout out to Sean Narain. I saw he's going to the UK Open qualifiers. We'll see how he does. We always root for Sean.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he can win one, and we could, like, break out his sunglasses.
Yeah,
for the
that'd be
next
nice.
show.
Do we still have those?
Yeah, we got a couple. You're going to probably get some more. Okay, Dave Chisnell versus Peter Wright. That's the your leadoff match. Followed by Barney against 80. Kim Hybricks against Michael Van Gerwen. Gary Anderson against Phil Taylor. There's your rematch. And Stephen Bunting versus James Wade. So let's talk about the first one. You got Chizzy and Peter Wright. Who do you like?
I guess I'd go with Peter Wright in that one.
Yeah, what is it? Chizzy's just I don't see it for him. I know he scores, and I'm sure he spends
they all
like 8
score
hours
now.
a day.
They all score now.
shooting at the triple 20.
Yeah.
He's got these 18-inch points. I get it. Okay, he can score, but of all the top pros, he's the one that looks the most flummoxed when he's on a finish. He actually looks petrified half the time. Like he's afraid he's going to miss the board.
Well, that's the hardest part about it is missing it.
Peter Wright, I don't know. He's just so much steadier. And, Peter Wright can score, but I think of him more as like a ton 40 guy. So he'll consistently be in the 90s, but I don't see him as capable of like a 105 kind of thing. Or like, the kind of ton 80 barrage that Van Gerwen had. So
how often does that happen anyway?
Well, again, we were talking about this before the show, too. You were playing, some legs with the project. And, it's like it's all about finishing, but you also got to be close enough to get to a finish.
Yes, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, you can't win games if you don't hit any triple 20s whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean it's
60 doesn't cut it.
Not against somebody who's throwing ton.
No.
So.
Well, not even so against somebody that throws ton 85. I mean, if you just throw 60, they throw 60 ton.
They're going to beat you to the finish.
Sure.
Yeah, they're going to beat you to
now,
the finish
granted,
for
if
sure.
they miss 12 darts at a double, you don't have a chance.
You kind of hope that's like the nightmare leg.
Right.
I'm on a 10 darter and I lose to a guy throwing a 21 darter.
Exactly.
And I just want to like crawl in a hole, and grab some dirt, bury yourself. All right, so you like Peter Wright there?
Sure.
Chizzy and Peter Wright. I there's no way on earth I would pick Chisnell, especially the first night.
What's the format?
It's a race. Well, you can draw. It's a race to 8. No,
Okay.
wait. Is it 7-7? It's a race to 7, but you can tie because it's 14 legs.
Right. Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So you can't pick draws here.
Yes, that's right. I remember this now.
Remember this now? Okay.
Yeah.
So match number 2. So we'll both take Peter Wright there. Barney and 80. I don't know. 80 never seems to play good in the Premier League.
The last couple years, we keep picking him, and he just doesn't do anything.
Yeah, he's
Even
the
though
Cincinnati
I was gonna
Bengals.
say I'd pick him again.
I'm always wrong about him. Barney's in better form. He just made a final.
Right. That's
Average 95. But I have to say Barney, he should be all right.
Yeah, I'll take him in that too.
I don't think Leeds. Barney seems popular wherever he goes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's places where they don't like 80 and they throw pennies at him and stuff. So I don't think Leeds is one of them though. We got Hybrix and
Van
MVG.
Gerwen. Well, I would love to pick Hybrix just because of Van Gerwen can't repeat performance, but how do you go against that guy?
Well,
I would if the money was right, this is where I would take it as a draw.
Take it as a draw,
depending on what the odds were.
Excuse me. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I can't justify picking Kim Hybrix over
can't
Van Gerwen.
No.
I'm trying to imagine a
But
scenario
it is only
where
the first round, right? And so there's plenty of rounds later. He could be. He could just
But he's a rookie. I mean, he hasn't
Van Gerwen
played.
Could go in there with a false sense of security. Just say, "Well, it's the first round. I don't care. I just won this tournament." And Hybrix can, possibly.
I would think Hybrix and Chizzy will both be a little nervous and geeked up because it's really a showcase, and it's really an honor to play in this thing. And the fact that they expanded the field and stuff, I think that works out pretty good. Adding and making it 10 guys, but for the rookies, I gotta feel like their first night's gonna maybe be a little tougher. So it's another reason not to take Hybrix.
Right.
So we're all over Van
Yeah,
Gerwen.
well, I'm still going to take Van Gerwen.
Who'd we take with Raymond and 80? We both take.
We took Van Barneveld.
So we're agreeing on everything.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, here's one: Gary Anderson and Phil Taylor rematch of the World Championship. I wonder if Gary Anderson's like Rob Gronkowski and he hasn't slept since.
Phil
and he's
Taylor just
celebrating.
lost in the first round of the.
Oh yeah, he
tournament.
just couldn't hit a double. I mean, he was getting smoked.
I'm going to
take. He was down
I'll
5-0.
take Taylor. I'll take Taylor in the rematch after his bad showing of the last tournament.
All right, I'll just for this, I'll take Anderson. To be honest, this has draw written all over it to me. But I would have to say, again, I don't know how Anderson did this weekend, but I'll take Anderson. Yeah, why not? We got to disagree on something. Are we going to keep track of this? And
next week when we replay the show to find out what we
Okay. All right,
well, actually, if we had Sam the intern writing this down for us, then we would have it, on paper.
Yeah, Sam the intern doing real work? I don't think so. Okay, and then the last match is actually interesting, and it's kind of funny. I don't know quite how they pick the order of which match they're going to put on first, but Stephen Bunting against James Wade strikes me as fascinating.
Is that the one they're putting on first, or you don't know?
No, this is last.
Oh.
Well, you generally want to have the best for last. Save the best for last, right? So Bunting and Wade, Wade coming back from basically being kicked out of the Premier League, right? I would think he's going to he never looks like it. I would think he does. I would think that even if he doesn't admit it, that he wants to show everybody not only does he belong there, but he can win it.
Yeah.
And, again, here's another rookie, but he's basically been in – very few guys have been in better form than Stephen Bunting in the last 12 months. So the crowds don't seem to bother him. The bright lights don't seem to bother him. What bothers him are guys that rain ton 80s on him. And the last couple –
that'll bother anybody.
Well, I was talking to a guy last night, and he was saying how these guys are getting mad, because somebody comes up and opens up with a white horse or something, and I'm like, well, I kind of expect it.
Yes. Well,
so what are you supposed to do? I'm like, I don't know, throw 9 17s.
That's what I told the project. I said you get above nickel, and I said even though say even in situations where it's your opponent's playing poorly. And you're slowly going down in 5-1. I always walk up expecting that I'm going to turn around and he's going to hit at least one triple 20 or another triple 20 because it's going to happen eventually.
Yeah,
you can't
assume that you're ahead enough,
right? And
especially in 0-1.
Right.
I mean,
but the thing about it is like yes, I mean even in the top tier of these guys. I could, the guy throws a ton 80, and I could see that not affecting you because you're going to believe you're going to do it too, and you go up there and say you throw a ton 40, you throw something good back at him. But, say you only throw a ton, and then they go chuck another ton 80 at you, then it could be a little demoralizing, because you didn't answer, and then, it's situations like that. But it's plus it's that many less darts that you have a chance of, getting to the out.
That was one thing that I got used to on the road relatively quickly is like the really good players punish a bad round. And, after it happened to me, like by 6 or 7 different people, I realized, well, okay.
Don't you have basically, a bad round.
Well, no, I mean, what you're basically doing there is saying, here, have 3 free darts. I didn't hit anything. And invariably, because you take the pressure off of them, they're going to hit something good.
Yes. Exactly.
I mean, that's the mental thing about darts that, I was trying to explain to this guy last night, because I'm trying to explain cricket concepts. And I'm like, look, I mean, it's all about putting pressure on the other guy. 501's the same thing.
Yeah.
Throw that 180 late in the leg when he thinks he's going to, maybe get an extra round at a double, and all of a sudden you're on a double, and, he's got to waste he's on 60, and now you're on 40.
Or it's inevitable that you have a decent lead, like 110 100 some points and the throw, and you throw a 26, it's inevitable that guy relaxes and goes up there and throws a ton 40, whatever.
Ton 80.
And all of a sudden,
ton 65.
He's ahead of you.
Yeah.
It's inevitable.
Yeah. And that's the thing that, I think the guys coming up are going to, I don't know if you could prepare for it. I mean, you can kind of tell yourself to expect it, but once you go through it a few times and you kind of realize, okay, this is the level of play that is expected of me or required, or this is what you need to do, and do it to them. Do it back. That's where, we were talking, I don't know, it was about a month ago about, playing the man versus playing the board. Playing the man in 0-1 is, I never do this, but I've seen guys, I kind of like read their body language, and, they're like, oh, you threw a ton 40, I'm going to throw a ton 40, only, mine's going to be prettier. I'm going to throw a ton 80. Or, you know what I mean? I mean, that competitive, get geeked up kind of thing.
Yeah.
I don't know if that works for everybody, but it does
No,
work for
I'm
some
sure
people.
it doesn't. But yeah, you still have to execute it regardless. Regardless of whether it amps you up that your opponent hit a ton 40 or whether you concentrate harder because your opponent hit a ton 40 and you're more subdued, whatever. But whatever works for you, you have to be able to do it.
Yeah.
And not get frustrated if you don't. I mean, if your opponent hits a ton 80 and you go up there and hit a ton, you're not out of it yet. You can't get upset about it.
You might not be.
But
I mean, it's more a matter of like, you're going to throw your 3 darts, but don't let what the other guy throws affect you.
Right.
Whether it's good or bad.
Exactly.
I've seen guys that like, follow a 60 and then they throw a 45 and it's like, well, okay, what happened there? Did you get complacent? Did you lose focus because you were so shocked that the guy threw a bad round or something? I mean, I've seen guys do that. I've seen guys do that on stage in England where it's like they got distracted because the guy missed and all of a sudden they miss.
Right.
Nothing worse than parking your first dart in the 1.
No.
Except, parking it in the 12.
Other than
the
parking
18.
all 3 of them in the 1.
Wow. I don't know.
Which that shouldn't happen.
Okay, so who we just to recap here, we're both
well,
taking.
I'm gonna take James Wade.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll take Bunting then. Did we not even pick that? Okay, so
We
let's
hadn't
recap
picked
it
that
then. So we're both on Peter Wright.
Correct.
We're both on Barney.
Correct.
We're both on MVG. I'm gonna pick draw. We get an extra point for picking a draw.
Are you getting an extra point?
Yeah, and then you're taking Taylor.
Yeah, I got Taylor.
Okay, I'm going to take a draw there.
And I got Wade.
And I'll take Bunting.
That doesn't seem like very good odds just to get 1 extra point for picking a draw.
Well, it does. Wait, what?
It's probably like 5-1 odds picking a draw.
Well, that's better odds than you'll get picking one of the players to win.
Well,
I mean, they're both going to be probably
pick
pick
1
'em.
extra point for picking a draw.
She should get more.
Well,
Get
sure.
one. What do you want?
I'm not saying in this scenario
I'm just saying
that's
for
going to
us.
happen. I'm
If
just
we're
saying for
keeping
us.
score.
For us, you get 1 extra point. I'm just saying that's why picking a draw might not be in your best.
Well, what should we get to make it worthwhile?
1 point. That's why you shouldn't pick a draw. You should pick a winner. You're not putting any money on the line, so.
I think it's going to be a draw.
Okay. I
should get extra
honestly,
credit, though.
I think you should get 3 points. If you pick a draw and it ends up on a draw.
Okay, so 3 points for a draw.
It's better
okay,
than
we'll do
1
3.
point for a winner. You should get 3 points if you actually pick the draw.
Okay. Well, I'll take the draw there. I'll take a flyer on the draw. All right, so you've got
Because you're
Wade.
giving up 1 point unless it exactly hits 7-7.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Okay. So.
Well, but that makes sense. Okay, so 3 points. Okay, so and we're going to track this every week then?
Mm-hmm.
See how we're doing?
Yeah.
Oh, God. That's frightening. It's a lot of work, too. Okay, so you're taking Wade.
Correct.
I'm taking Bunting. You're taking Taylor. I'm taking a draw. And then we're both on MVG, Barney, and Peter Wright.
Correct.
Okay, good. You guys can mail in picks if you like, and if you do something spectacular, we'll give you a shout-out on the show. Just email them to darttalk@gmail.com.
Give out like flights or something for this? But
yeah, they had some sort of contest.
Yeah.
They were doing pools and stuff like this. It's kind of like, if you want to do it, go on Facebook or something.
Right.
Which, by the way, I never go on Facebook now. And I got an email, how come you don't go on Facebook anymore? I'm always on an iPad. And I get, if you direct message me now, they have a separate application in Facebook. It's called Messenger.
Yeah,
so I never even go into Facebook until we, set up the show and do the link. So it's no offense to anybody. I just, if you want to get a hold of me, direct message me on Facebook. Yeah.
You're answering all the Messenger questions. You're not going into people's.
Yeah, and it was so funny too because I was signing up for a tournament in March, and the link didn't work because they put a Facebook link on their website page. I was like, well, you got to take the Facebook part off that. Because it was throwing you into Facebook, and then Facebook is like, I don't know what this is.
Right.
So it's kind of funny. I mean, Facebook is not the internet. Facebook is only part of the internet for all the Facebook people out there. Thanks, everybody, for listening. We'll be back next week. 8:30 is our normal time now. 8:30 Central, 9:30 Eastern.
Good luck with your picks.
6:30 Pacific.
Good luck with your picks.
Good luck with your picks. Email them, and if you get all of them right, we'll give you a shout-out on the show. Just send those to darttalk@gmail.com. Don't forget, we have a website, darttalk.us. We have a YouTube channel with all the old shows, and you can get us on iTunes, on Stitcher.com, on TuneIn.com. Any other shout-outs? Thanks, everybody in the chat room.
No, looks like everything was good.
Glad you all like the football talk.
Yes. Yes. We'll have more of it next week.
No, we won't. Baseball's coming, though.
Ooh. Yes, it is.
Anyway, thanks.
My favorite sport, by the way.
Thanks, everybody, for listening, and we will Dart Talk to you next week.